But we do tend to keep very quiet about it. It's not something you brag about, Mel, or you keep it quiet. We know we have our own way of recognising it, just like the Freemasons, we've got our own signal. And if they go, then you talk about it. Otherwise, I keep that fairly quiet.
Look, talking of all you perverts, it was a big year. It was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. Shut up. I don't care. I don't care. Many talented people of colour were snubbed in major categories. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about that. The Hollywood foreign press are all very, very racist. So, fifth time. So, we were going to do an in memoriam this year, but when I saw the list of people that had died, it wasn't diverse enough. It just, no. It was mostly white people. And I thought, nah, not on my watch. So, maybe next year. Let's see what happens. No one cares about movies anymore. No one goes to the cinema. No one really watches network TV. Everyone's watching Netflix. This show should just be me coming out going, well done Netflix, you win everything, good night. But no, we've got to drag it out for 3 hours. You could binge watch the entire first season of Afterlife instead of watching this show. That's a show about a man who wants to kill himself because his wife dies of cancer, and it's still more fun than this, okay? Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end he obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care. You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you? It wasn't the only epic movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, nearly 3 hours long. Leonardo DiCaprio attended the premiere, and by the end, his date was too old for him. So... even Prince Andrew's like, come on, Leo, mate, you know, you're nearly 50, son. A superb drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China. So, well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and... So... it's already 3 hours long. Right, let's do the first award. The first award.
You know what you mean. I understand the idea of sort of cultural elitism and esotericism. And I feel like, you know, you obviously have an incredibly refined sense of humour, and at the risk of bolstering a compliment that I've already given you that was scarcely reciprocated, I feel like you're a genius, like in a like proper Hancock, Cleese, Coogan kind of lineage. And even though your background is sort of marked by ordinariness, and the sort of gentle beauty of the ordinary is obviously something that captivates you, there is something alienating first, I think, about that kind of insight that you have, and I would offer also secondarily by becoming very successful. And I wonder about how you how you've experienced alienation both prior to success and subsequent to it. Also bearing in mind that, like prior to your comedy career, you know, the stuff with the new romantic looking 20-year-old Ricky Gervais stuff. And also remember, I did mention to you about suicide and despair earlier. So if you can just have an answer that covers all of that territory.
Jesus. Well, I don't know if I don't know
I don't think I've ever suffered from any of those more chronic conditions. I've never really felt that alienated, or I've never suffered from terrible anxiety or depression without cause. You know, I've had grief, you know, loved ones die and all that. Growing up, I didn't know I was poor and working class till I was 14, 15. Do you know what I mean? We're all in the same boat. I went to a comprehensive school. I was smart, so I was in the top few there. I always felt I'd go to university. Do you know what I mean? I never felt everything's out of my reach. I never thought it won't happen to you, which is odd. Yeah. I don't know why I had that confidence. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe it was bravado. Or maybe I just thought that's the only way to do it, academia. It's so funny because, you know, 500 years ago, to move through a class, you know, you had to be a great warrior and you might get a knighthood, but that was very rare and dangerous. Then the industrialists started, you know, finding coal prospectors went and found gold, and they moved up and they moved into neighbourhoods like mine. They became wealthier than the wealthy. But in our sort of lifetime, I suppose the last group to do it it's pop culture. It's footballers and pop stars, where, you know, you suddenly heard working class and regional accents, and they were in mansion houses and driving Rolls Royces into pools, which I'm sure you've done, but I never would. I'd go, that's a waste. Let's get you. So throw the telly out. We can fix this. We can fix this. So I'm sort of aware of all those things, but I never felt it. I was never conscious of it. You know, I suppose the first time I went for an interview at university, that's when I heard people who sounded a bit like the Queen, and I hadn't heard that accent. My teachers were working class. Mm-hmm. It was like everything. They were working class. They were lads. They were working class lads in a comprehensive school in Reading. So that's when I started mixing with people, of difference in class and wealth. And I remember meeting someone. He didn't know what a supermarket was, and I thought he was winding me up. And I guess I played it a bit, because in my first year I gave myself a skinhead, and I loved the fact that I was ID'd going into the college and I could show so I definitely, and I remember I wore my dad's old Lang donkey jacket in 19. Hi guys, I'm working class. I'm one of the 6%. Hi guys. You know what I mean? It's like, what was the last part of the question?
Well, I guess I was sort of talking about, like, you've sort of explained didn't feel alienated, but you also don't. It seems like you wore literally your class as a badge and didn't feel inferiority. And like, I suppose, like, you know, a character like David Brent, like, who's like under all this sort of excruciating social pressure and wants to better himself on camera, yes, right through to the protagonist in Afterlife dealing with despair. Like, it's like, in your, like, and of course your obsession with authenticity, I wonder where in your own life, is it something that's very private to you, feelings of pain?
Well, because it does go into your art, but sometimes, you know, I'm very keen for people to know that they shouldn't use every joke as a window to the soul of the comedian, because sometimes I'll make a joke or routine that is the opposite of what I feel, because it makes the joke better. And I'm militant about people going, listen, it sometimes it really is just a joke, and sometimes it's the opposite of what I believe. I start with my super nature story. I do a sort of an off-colour joke, and they go, oh, they've grown, and I go, well, that was irony, you see, because that's when I say something I don't really mean, and you as an audience laugh at the wrong thing because you know what the right thing is. It's a way to, and they get it, and then I'll call back that sometimes. I go, no, don't let me down now, remember what we said. So I'm playing with those constraints and misunderstandings. But your first point is that David Brent, he was sort of on that cusp. I was fascinated that Cleese did it a little bit with Faulty Towers, where he was sort of lower middle class, and he wanted to. His aspiration was Buckingham Palace, whereas by the time I got around to doing The Office, the new aspiration was Beckingham Palace. It was that sort of level, what I mean? I want to be on telly. I want to be on telly. I want to be famous. And it was just creeping in then. And it was a very important part of The Office. Without it being a fake documentary, that is a very boring average sitcom. There's some jokes, there's some great performances. But if you don't know why this man is acting like that, you've lost 50% of what's funny and tragic about that. And you're right, he's trying to move, just like Basil Fawlty, he's trying to move, right? But he's doing it for the same reasons, right? And all this bullshit, I want that, I want this, we need that, we have to do that, but it all comes down to one thing, right? It's being happy. It's being happy with yourself and having, and then what's being happy with? There's so many boxes to tick, and the one people forget is worth. It's absolutely massive. It's worth, and so all those things went into David Brent, but he basically needed a hug. And I remember in the days when you were in every paper and doing every interview, right? Someone said, "What's your favourite thing?" And you said, "The Office," and there was a picture of David Brent, and you talked about David Brent, and you said it's beautiful, it's sad, and it is. And I remember that one of the first times I'd read that it is sad, because he needs a hug. That's all he's doing. He's saying, "Am I good enough? Do you love me yet?" And it's fucking tragic. And when you know that, I think you like David Brent. Yeah. I think you like him.
Yeah, I always did. But then my favourite lines, I like that. I was thinking about it recently. That's not good news and bad news. That's good news and irrelevant news. And you go, that's not a phrase, though, is it?
But now that level of narcissism is mediocre. Now we have leaders saying things like that. The bad news is the pandemic. The good news is I'm up 3 in the polls. It's like it really, and it just got worse and worse. I had to really up my game for life on the road because it had been 15 years, and now David Brent wasn't even that odd or annoying compared to. Do you know what I mean? People on The Apprentice who say, "I will destroy anyone who stands in my way." That is like an unwritten law with the producers going, "Let me on and I'll behave badly." For Big Brother contestants, "Let me in there and I'll start a fight and take my clothes off." Okay, you promise? Yeah. With this obsession with seeing normal people destroy themselves. Some of them, I don't know how some of them passed the medical exam, because some of them, they shouldn't be in there, and it's not good for them. No. This thing where people keep going back to fame and going, "Do you love me yet?" No, they don't love you. They want you to fail. Anyway. Yeah,
there's a kind of there's been a glorification of idiocy in culture, and it seems like that's something that still annoys you. That sort of celebration of stupidity, and it seems like a lot of what you're saying, is that you're a grounded person. Like you said, my role is a jester. I don't want to get out of my box. So, you can tease the king, but don't start trying to grab the crown or anything. But it is beautiful. But I was struck when you said that by a few things. One is like this sort of like the injection of meaning, as in, like meaning would have to be imported externally, fabricated somehow, invented. Whereas I think on some level I feel that meaning is inhered, and that the meaning is in the kind of zeal that you have when you describe the things that give you love, pleasure, connection, whether it's wine or dogs or whatever. I've had like some experiences like through meditation, and when I took drugs too young, and now I'm not allowed to do ayahuasca or LSD or them things that I would definitely be doing if I wasn't in recovery. But I had like these experiences that were a kind of, I would say, a sort of an evaporation of self and yet a continued awareness. I know that my consciousness is connected to my biology, but I have a sense somewhat derived from the fact that you can't trace how mechanical parts ever become conscious, that consciousness may be elemental somehow. Now that doesn't point to a god in a traditional patriarchal or domineering sense, but it sort of points to an element that's very difficult to quantify, whether that's the deep intelligence of nature, the deep mathematics of biochemistry and biology, and the essential mystery of consciousness itself, commonly referred to as the hard problem. And through these sort of individual experiences, whilst I've not had anything that you would call typically religious, Jesus emerging out of a tunnel, Ganesh lashing around, or any of that sort of stuff, what I've had is like it's highly bloody interpretive, because there's this one breath thing I do. You breathe from the abdomen very aggressively, and then you sort of take a sharp inhale, and a medical man would say what you're doing there is hyperventilating and nearly passing out. But from the inside, what it feels like is bloody hell. For this moment, I'm aware, and I'm not me. What is this? What is this? Is there a possibility that my awareness, your awareness, the awareness of all animals, and an awareness that's impossible to read is somehow present in all nature, in all matter? And if that's true, then there's a kind of a genuine cohesion and togetherness between all of the beings of the earth and beyond. And those people that can't actually enjoy the lives that we are privileged to have, of the red wine or the dogs or whatever, I'm not saying that's some sort of comfort to them, but in fact those of us that are in privileged position might feel newly incentivized to work towards a different kind of society and system that is more reflective of those values. Now, that doesn't necessarily require monotheism, pantheism, or any of those things, but it is somewhat underwritten by a kind of a sameness and a oneness, and how that might relate to justice. And also, there is a sort of a personal experience of mystery in it. I wonder what you feel about that, and if you're curious about psychedelics and that kind of outward states and that.
I love a good mystery, and you're right. It is a mystery. All science it does is it's a discipline that follows the evidence. And what science keeps saying, and some people say this is a flaw, that it's been wrong before. Well, science never been wrong before. Our interpretation, science has been wrong before. Science is just a way to look and understand the physical universe. And what science says, it keeps saying, okay, this is the least wrong theory we've got so far. And then the next day it goes, okay, we're even less wrong today. We were less wrong today. They've mapped the beginning of the universe to a fraction of a second, which is pretty close. But I think science keeps proving itself over and over again. And the fact that we don't understand the mind-body problem completely yet, that is the beauty. And the more we understand, the more questions it throws up. It's like, people say the missing link. There's this fossil and there's this fossil, and we find that one. And people go, no, there's two missing links. So you can't win, And all science keeps doing is just keep filling the gaps and finding new gaps. But yeah, you're right. I think that it's amazing what intelligence is. I'm a determinist, which changes nothing. I believe that free will is an illusion. So be it. If it feels like it, it might as well be. But then to analyse it and go, well, we're we're machines. We are machines. We are machines. We're machines trying to understand ourselves, and that's hard. Will there one day be a computer that is suffering from anxiety? I reckon so. I reckon so. I reckon there'd be a genius computer that's worried about shit. I really do.
Yeah, that's the summit.
We're lumps of meat. We're chimps with brains the size of a planet. Of course we go mad and try and kill each other and worry about what's the point. Of course we do. It's overwhelming. And the more you think about it, the more frightening it is. So I just think that my new show, Supernature, I start with saying it's called Supernature for two reasons. One, I want to debunk the supernatural. I don't believe in anything supernatural. I think that anything that exists is by definition part of nature and is explainable. If not now, then eventually. And also supernature because nature is super enough. We don't need angels and unicorns. We've got the fucking octopus. And then I go into, we don't need to look. I feel we don't need to look elsewhere. That doesn't mean I'm not in awe of poetry and intelligence. And, I just don't think that unweaving the rainbow spoils it. I think it makes it more exciting. When I see a card trick and I don't know how it's done, and then the magician tells me, I can't wait for him to show someone else who doesn't know how it's done. And how it's done is more exciting for me. Just do you know what I mean? Yes,
I do. And I also sort of don't believe in magic, that kind of stuff. But one of the things I spoke to Neil deGrasse Tyson about was, that dude, he's amazing, isn't he? Like, I spoke to him about the sort of
quantum physics. All bets are off. We can talk like this till we're blue in the face, and then quantum physics comes along, and there's that saying: if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't understand quantum physics.
Yeah,
it's magic. Quantum physics, by all our definitions of science and nature, right? And we're intelligent people. We've read a bit. We think, right? We've got a good brain. We've got as good a brain as anyone. But fuck quantum physics. It's mental.
Yes. It sort of seems what I like that came up in our conversation, and I sort of used it to illustrate my feeling that the limitations of our senses and the limitations of our capacity to handle knowledge mean that there will always be a realm beyond knowledge, that all scientific disciplines are contingent upon amplification of existing senses, microscopic, telescopic, even calculating devices like AI, and that I don't see like quantum physics as woo type magic, but I do see it as an indication of fucking hell. There is an intelligence at work.
It's just we can't. Like some people say, you can't understand it like God can understand it because you haven't got God's brain. Well, that is quantum physics to me. The fact that it happens means it exists and it's true and it's scientific. But then to ask us to understand it, now that's a big ask, because it's incredible, just the uncertainty principle, the fact that I want it to be metaphor. I want it to go, we don't literally mean it's in two places at once. I go, yeah, we do, because the way that time is... Right, start again, right, I've got two potatoes. It's because, and usually it's the scale of things that we can't fathom. But it doesn't mean it's not true. And if it's true, it's real. It's as simple as that for me. And I know that sounds like a linguistic trick for me to get away without actually feeling that I understand it. But it doesn't make it not true. And that's all I think. The fact that I don't understand something doesn't mean it's not understandable. I wouldn't be so arrogant as to think that because I don't understand consciousness, and the fact that the universe is expanding, it doesn't mean it's not true. So I think I've always got that get-out clause. I don't have to leap for a being did it, a different being on a different plane and level made it. That's all I don't know. And I think that most people would be satisfied if you sat them down and said, all those things that you think God did, right? He did. He just doesn't have a will like you think he does. He's just nature.
Yes.
And I think some people would be happy with that, I think.
Yes, because will is, like, you know, as much as I can understand it, strongly related to my individual imperatives, which are based on survival, which are therefore material: need to procreate, need to have food, need to have shelter, need to die. So will, however it might refract through a culture that no longer requires of me that I seek shelter or find food, you know, like all culture is coming from this place. And I think when we're talking about the absolute, whether we're talking about it in sort of materialistic scientific terms or spiritual or even religious terms, it's not going to be something that we can comprehend and understand. And I've always used that as a kind of rebuttal to the idea of why do bad things happen, because I feel like we are on such a narrow bandwidth of all potential realities, of all potential understandable forms and unforms, that our notions of good and bad are inhibited. We are beyond that.
Yes. Well, this is another point. Again, I put it in Afterlife as a bit of a joke, where Kath says to me, if you don't believe in God and heaven and all that, why don't you just go out raping and murdering as much as you want? And I say, I do, which is not at all. And that's a scary prospect that some people, because they think in absolute morality, they think that there's no point in being good without a God. And that's quite a big school of thought that people take that to the nth degree. They go, you know, and my worry is that if you're only not murdering because you think God's watching, that's scary.
Yeah, like it's the purge.
You know, if that's what stops you murdering, then yeah, okay, that's whatever gets you through. So. Yeah, I don't believe in absolute morality, because I think that we invented morality as a code to live by so we could all be as happy as possible. You know, there are different laws for different times and different species. You know, the law of the spider is not the same as the law as the human. We know that. If I'm starving, I don't eat my own legs, and when we mate, we don't bite the head of the partner afterwards. So it's a nonsense to try and equate morality with nature and spirituality and religion. It is because people got together and decided that the best way to live. You know, that's society more than anything, and morality existed before any God, in my opinion, before any God, you know, and they just took the golden rule, which I love, but it's not religions that, you know, do as you would be done by, and I think it's a really good rule of thumb, and if everyone did that, the world would instantly be a better place, without any God interference. And the other one that I've come to love, probably my favourite piece from the Bible that everyone's forgotten, and I see it more and more in the last 10, 15 years, and particularly on social media, is let those amongst you who is without sin cast the first stone. And I'll tell you, that would shut so many fucking people up. You know, despite what people think of me, I'm not a very judgmental person in my private life. I go, whatever, you know, what good luck to them. You know, I always try and see. I even try and empathise with what you call bad people. I think, well, why do they do that? I'm always willing to. I'd be a judge going, promise you won't do it again. You know, I wouldn't. Okay, you know what I mean? I really do. You know, one. Better 1,000 guilty go free than one innocent person, you know. We do have to have these societal laws for the benefit of everyone, and the irony is that a secular society would defend all rights to religious belief more than any one religion does. But all it's saying is, let's not make it law. Let's not make superstition law. Let's not. And it's so funny. I see it. I see the hypocrisy in a so-called Christian country, free country, who hate the idea of this fundamentalist state, but they're doing the same. It's just that theirs is a different God they're doing it with. You're the same. You're the same. You think God is on your side, and you can, your tribe can rule. So yeah, unlike all religions, I treat all religions equally.
Yes. What about, though, secularism is some degree underwritten by economic ideologies and I would say sort of social systems that in a way behave precisely as religions do, in that they impede.
I don't agree with that at all, because all secularism says that we want to separate church from state, that you don't base any laws on a particular belief in a particular God or religion. That's all it's really saying, isn't it? And you know what? In the freest, most liberal, sensible societies, it is secular, really. But some people go to church, and that's fine. It doesn't bother anyone. But on an exam with biology, physics, and chemistry, the answer isn't God did it. That's all. That's all a secular society insists. This works. Biology works. Physics works. It works over and over again. It's just induction. But I would. People said, if you could, would you ban religion? I go, no. I honestly wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't ban religion. In fact, if someone started banning someone the right to believe in whatever God, I'd march, going, let them believe in that God. It's your right to believe in whatever. Honestly, I'd fight for anyone's right to believe in God, goblins, witches. Just don't throw homosexuals off buildings, and we're fine.
Yeah, I think in the end it becomes God and good become synonymous in any meaningful ideology, that there is a kind of sense of harmony and as best possible fairness and non-intervention.
Well, it's all I've got. I've lost the working class thing now, so all I've got is atheism as my oppression. There's 13 countries where I'd be put to death, and in America we were voted least trustworthy group along with rapists. So I've always got atheism. I'm oppressed, Russell.
In that case, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Oh, wicked, Ricky. We've done an hour there, mate. That's
wow, it's my nap time.
Yeah, that's where you can go back into your carefully guarded rituals of soup and whatever else it is that holds you together in your godless, nihilistic expanse.
Well, I'd just like to say, I'll give you the compliment. It's so lovely to see you well and all grown up, not sitting there in a sheet, but in real proper clothes, and I couldn't be prouder.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, mate. That's I'll carry that. Thanks, man. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed that conversation, go over to luminarypodcast.com now and sign up for a week's free trial and listen to the many, many fantastic conversations that I've had on this platform. Simon Amstel being but one of them. Who did we do recently that I was well into? David Eagleman, absolutely fantastic. Frankie Boyle. There's just so many brilliant conversations. All right, lots of love. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for tuning in.
Nothing really new, but it's picking up steam and it's building momentum in certain circles. The worst part is you may not even be aware of it, but groundwork is being laid. One of the main reasons for these same old tired ideas being revitalized is because those pushing globalism and government control on a global level have mastered the art of hiding it in plain sight and then just dismissing it as a joke. Their great example would be this: the United Nations Earth Summit, Agenda 21. Yeah, that kind of sounds like Fahrenheit 451. I don't think that ended well. Agenda 21. They refer to it as sustainable development. Well, that sounds good. Gee, Wally, that sure sounds great to me. I mean, who's against development, especially the sustainable kind? Yeah, you might change your mind when you hear a little bit of the background of sustainable development. Here's how Agenda 21 is defined by the United Nations. A comprehensive plan of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the United Nations system, governments, and major groups in every area in which humans impact the environment. Wow, that's kind of broad. Now, it has been adopted by more than 178 governments. I believe there's only 191 on the planet. The United Nations had their big conference on the environment and development in Rio back in 1992, and that's when everybody jumped on board. But it sounds harmless. It's only Agenda 21. Yeah, go look this one up, because it's not so harmless. And it really, can I tell you something? You have to dig pretty deep into this thing. I mean, because look at all this. It doesn't get spooky until about here. Just section 1. Social and economic dimensions, which talks about the redistribution of wealth, changing consumption patterns, promoting health, I love this one, change population, and sustainable settlement. That's good. Then a little later, when it talks about the redistribution of wealth, which we all love, quote, developed countries and funding agencies should provide specific assistance to developing countries in adopting an enabling approach to the provision of shelter for all. So that's like guaranteed housing. Well, that's going to be great because the government's going to own all of our houses anyway because we're all going broke because of this. Reading through the pages, it becomes clear sustainable development is just a really nice way of saying centralized control over all of human life on planet Earth. That doesn't sound bad. It starts to make more sense when you see who's responsible for all of this. First, Gro Harlem Brundtland. I love her. I don't really know how to say her name because I don't know anybody who names their child with the first name G-R-O, Gro. But here she is, strong like bull. She happens to be the first vice president of Socialist International, which I read in Newsweek, we're all socialists now, just like Gro. Totally unrelated to her work at the UN is her socialist work, I'm sure. She's also really close friends with the Clintons. Oh, they get along so great. Where is she? Oh, there she is. Yoo-hoo! Right here. There she is. She's also active in the Clintons' Global Initiative. She's there for the annual meetings. Yeah. She was there when Hillary received a German Media Award in 2005. And here's Hillary wishing her dear friend happy 70th birthday. Watch. Here she is.
As a former environment minister, a longtime advocate for sustainable development, and most recently as a United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Change. You helped set the stage for intensive diplomatic and scientific work being done on this issue today.
Yada, yada, yada. Okay. Gro wasn't just there. Come on, she's being modest here. Gro wasn't just there. She coined the term sustainable development in a 1987 missive entitled Our Common Future. That was a piece that laid the groundwork for that's 92 Earth Summit, which, by the way, The 92 Earth Summit, the conference. You know who else was there? This guy. I love this guy. Love you, Maurice. Thank heaven for little girls. Wrong, Maurice. This is Maurice Strong. You might remember him from Crime Inc. Remember that? Yeah. He's a globalist. He was formerly of the UN. He was on the board of the Chicago Climate Exchange scam. He also has this crazy idea. He wants to have people, if you want to have a baby, you know how that works, right? Because I'm not going to tell you, but I mean, pretty simple. Okay. He wants to make sure if you want to have a baby, you have to have a license. He also said the only way to save the world at this point is to have the industrial civilization collapse. So what could be nefarious about what's happening with India? What? It's about helping the planet. All right, so that's how Agenda 21 came to be. Strongly reaffirmed at the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in Johannesburg, South Africa in 2002. Why is Glenn Beck talking about Agenda 21? How does this matter to you? Well, there is a good chance now your local community officials are actively working on implementing this socialist-created redistribution of wealth, globalist scheme disguised, really poorly, as environmental crusades. And here's how they're doing it. Through this organization. It's ICLEI. ICLEI. Local Governments for Sustainability. It was launched in 1990 with only a handful of participating governments. Today, over 1,200 local governments are involved. Here's what they do. Anytime you're coming up, your town is coming up with some sort of new zoning or an open space, or they want to have the smart energy meters, anything environmental, park, you must look for the buzzword like sustainable development, because there is a good chance that the people behind it at the local level may or may not have any idea, but the good chance is that the usual suspects are involved just behind the curtain.
You didn't hear anything about the World Trade Center 7, not for a long time. And we'd never experienced, prior to that day, a steel frame building collapsing due to fire. It just didn't happen.
There was no excuse for rushing to remove debris from Building 7. There was quick decisions made about taking that evidence away. They only saved one piece of steel, and that piece of steel suffered some extreme temperatures.
Fire cannot cause that. There are other chemicals that were involved.
We did not find any evidence that explosives were used in the collapse of Building 7.
They ignored evidence, and it wasn't because they didn't know about it.
They seemed to focus on a solution right from the very beginning and ignore all evidence that would have led them in any other direction. There was just this silence in the academic world about this subject. So we began looking around for someone that would be willing to undertake such a study. We ran across Professor Halsey up at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. He was very scientific about the way he approached this whole problem.
He wants to look at things from a very rational perspective, blocking all the noise out, which is really what is needed in this case.
If there is controversy, that means that not everyone's satisfied with the answer. If we can change that, if we can give the public and the engineers an understanding of truly what did happen, it's worth it to me to be able to do that work.